lot of people have come out the gate with the Kamala Harris disrespect. I mean, from the moment she ran for Attorney General and then the U.S. Senate, in each case, she has been met with all kinds of disrespect, all kinds of anger, all kinds of misrepresentation of her politics, of her identity, and even of her very name. And so when she decided to run for president, and except basically move toward the nomination of the Democratic Party, it's no surprise that the disrespect has continued. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed that in some mainstream media spaces, people just be like, they don't call her Vice President Kamala Harris. They don't call her Kamala Harris. They don't call her Ms. Harris. They just be like Kamala. And half the time, they don't even say Kamala. They be like Kamala, like she's, the Ugandan headhunter or the Ugandan giant back in the WWF, both names, WWF, old school 80s wrestling. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They don't use the right name. And so last night, Coleman Hughes was on. And Coleman Hughes was on with Carrie Champion, who is a media giant. Cool. She's an unfortunate Lakers fan, but other than that, she's out here making a case, intervening in the conversation along with Solomon Jones, along with other people. And Coleman Hughes just refused to call Vice President Harris by her name. And here is how the exchange went. He says something crazy. Carrie Champion checked him. Peep this.
Biden has had instincts around foreign policy for decades, right? What are Kamala's instincts? I literally don't know. She was against the death penalty. She was for the death penalty.
You don't know Donald Trump's instincts.
Yes, I do. On trade, on foreign policy.
You can't read his mind. None of us
read the instincts by a pattern over a lifetime.
And there is a pattern.
For Trump, there's patterns on trade.
That I say whatever I need to say in that moment in order to get people's support. That's what Donald Trump has done over and over and over again.
Can we also call her vice president? You guys are speaking about her so carefully and casually, as if you know her, and I think she deserves the respect. And if we continue,
I don't always say President Biden when I say Biden.
If we continue in the media to just call her Kamala or whatever name you just called her, it sends a message of lack of respect. And so I think she needs the title, and I think she deserves the respect.
Into it. It's not an intended.
Well, when you say her name wrong, it's definitely
let's just.
It's an important point. Now, some of y'all gonna be like, oh, y'all too sensitive. Oh my God, y'all caping. No, listen. Every candidate becomes a kind of household name when they run for president. And we do get comfortable with the naming. Sometimes people just said Obama. Sometimes people just say Bernie. Sometimes people just say Reagan. But in the media, first of all, we should be using people's titles and honorifics consistently, right? President Biden, President Trump, Vice President Harris. How does she become vice president but doesn't get called vice president when we call Trump isn't president and we still call him president? Biden wasn't the vice president when he ran for president and they called him Vice President Biden. But suddenly now, Kamala Harris can't be Vice President Harris. And Coleman Hughes is saying, well, you're imputing something, you're attaching something to my name. Because he's a right winger. Coleman Hughes is a right wing commentator and thinker. The argument, of course, is going to be, you all are looking for racism where there isn't. I call Joe Joe. I call Trump Trump. So what's the difference? The difference is a couple things. One, again, you usually say President Trump and President Biden, and you don't say Vice President Harris. Second, and more importantly, I think, you said Kamala, not Kamala. Now, look, first time I was on Fox News talking about President Obama, I pronounced his name slightly incorrectly. This was in 2006. I pronounced it the way I would imagine to be pronounced in its original language. But you know what happened after that? I heard the correct pronunciation. And you know what happened after that? I used it. Kamala Harris is not new to the political scene. Calling her Kamala when she ran for the Attorney General of California? Okay, fine. Calling her Kamala when she ran for U.S. Senate? Maybe. But then she ran for president. Then she became vice president. Somehow, y'all can say Pete Buttigieg. You can say Benjamin Netanyahu. You can say Vladimir, you can say Vladimir Putin or Volodymyr Zelensky, but y'all can't say Kamala? You can't put an accent on the first syllable? And Coleman Hughes, from what I understand, you are of Latin American descent, right? You're not, as they say, you ain't ADOS. I'm not dissing you. I'm not a xenophobe or nothing like that. I'm just saying, like, bro, I think you can say Kamala. A whole lot of words got an accent on the first syllable. What's my point? My point is y'all are being intentional in your mispronunciation of Kamala Harris's name. You are being intentional with the disrespect. You can say her name. Donald Trump is doing the same thing. He keeps saying Kamala. His campaign keeps saying Kamala. And yet somehow, right now, y'all can't. You're doing it because you want to send a message that her name isn't worth remembering. So not only are you not calling her vice president, but you're also calling her Kamala. That combo is a way of saying, I don't respect you. Your name isn't worth respecting. Your name isn't worth remembering. Your name isn't worth pronouncing properly. It sends a message to everybody. I hope voters are paying attention to this disrespect. I hope Black people in particular are paying attention to this disrespect. I'm not saying run out and vote for Kamala because she's getting disrespected by white people. A whole lot of people get disrespected by white people. They don't necessarily need to be president. But it should tell you something about Trump. Take Kamala off the table. The fact that Trump is willing to do this. The same Trump that wants to sit down with the NABJ and prove that he loves Black people, but you can't say this woman's name properly? Come on, man. Anyway. So the question for me then becomes, well, what should we call her? Well, you can call her a couple of things. I think it's okay to say Kamala Harris in everyday speech as we're debating. I think it's okay to say Vice President Harris. But what you can't say is Kamala. And if you're speaking about everybody else with honorifics, president this, senator that, don't make Kamala Harris the exception. Make her Vice President Kamala Harris. It's that simple.